Unmute. There we go. That's all right. How's it going, guys? Back again.
So we're live now.
Nice.
Playing some
Okay.
music. I can't actually hear it, but I'm just going to see if I can find the stream.
I guess we're still in the Discord. Maybe we should end that one. I'm hearing these. Okay, so we are. Nice. Okay. I like it. I like it. I hope it's real time. Like I hope that there's not much of any type of latency with what I'm hearing. Sometimes impromptu freestyles happen, so I can't help it. Jim, I guess you're muted.
Oh, dear,
there we go.
Right, there we go. Can you hear me now? See, I thought
Definitely.
I did that thing where I thought I was hitting play on the sequencer, but I was actually pressing play within OBS, and so nothing happened, and we sat there in silence for a little while. I was just checking that I've got the stream showing up somewhere here. Okay, yes, so there we go. I can see that is something's logging there. Okay, so I was just going to start off by playing this song from within the sequencer just to start things off.
I love cheese. Anybody able to check this out on mobile? Just make sure we're good. I'll say from what I see, there's this one has a bit of a delay. 'Cause I heard the music coming from the bottom of this, and
I don't hear the music at all, but I hear it through the phone.
oh, right, I heard it for a moment. Only after the phone.
Right, I'm just going to hit stop there.
It's all good.
This has been the chaotic, another classic chaotic ordinal start to a live stream.
Well, as you said, pioneers, right? A lot of
We're learning
interesting.
as we go. This is the life of pioneers in the space. We're sort of coming to terms with how we get all this audio going. It's quite tricky figuring out how to get everyone's internal audio so we can play all this music. I think I'm the one who's got stuff set up. So we've got Color, who's been helping me for a couple of months with sort of a to and fro about sort of how to get songs playing and how to get the audio sequencer in a state where it could be used to be doing live mixes and stuff. And so he's been working on something for quite a while, and we're going to try and play that today. I think I'm going to play the JSON file myself, and then we've got Babbo here, who's obviously been also involved for a couple of months. We've been having some really good chats about how to kind of grow this whole movement, you know, for musicians and for creators. And then we've got Justin Blends, who's been very supportive of Audionals right from the get-go. In fact, I think even release, I don't even know how that even came to be, but you were getting in with the password, I think, were you? And
No, I wasn't able to get
you were
it.
just
I
looking
made
at
a couple of videos and I was like, guys, I still can't get into this website during my live streams and stuff. And I mentioned it a couple of times on YouTube. By the way, I don't know if we're streaming still, just to let you guys know.
Oh, really?
The audio has ended. So whatever we're capturing it now, I don't see it anymore. What it said was something like click to watch replay, which means that it has
So it
ended.
still says stop streaming here.
So guys, please do check on your mobiles, all right, or desktop,
yeah,
whatever.
have
But
another little look and see if I can
yeah, we may have to repeat everything we're saying. It was good talks, you know, good comments.
I mean, my computer is not having the best day today. It's getting
Yeah. So who are the names? Let me see. How do you pronounce it? Is it Bab? Let me see. Babu?
Baba.
Babo. Sorry.
Baba.
Babo. Okay. Sorry. I need to turn you guys up. There we go.
It's actually Italian, so you got to do it with the Italian accent. It's Babo.
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 Yeah.
All right. So again, guys, like I don't think we're live because it said 1 minute and 37 seconds. Let me see what it
I was
says.
just on it on Twitter and it said live.
It says live on my end too, but it doesn't look like it's actually.
Yeah, like if I show
Any
you guys
video.
the screen, it's gray on my side, completely gray.
And here on the restream panel, I see the image of Jim is completely distorted. Do you see that as well?
Jim looks good to me. Everybody
yeah.
looks good on
Okay.
my side personally, but definitely when I go
It should be
online.
going out in several different places. It goes out on YouTube. I'm just going to jump over here. There's
Yeah.
so much teething going on here, but hopefully in about
It's all
12
good,
months
guys.
I will have this absolutely tied down.
12 months. Look, we'll be
we'll
just
see.
barely into the bull run with confidence for people. So
It's been
I
a good
think
day
you're
today, hasn't
all
it,
right.
by the way? What's triggered the markets today? There's been a big...
Grayscale beat the SEC today.
Oh, yeah? Really? What, was
Yeah,
this ETF or something? Or
Yeah, something to do with the ETF, but the SEC they just lose. They just constantly lose these bigger cases. So I think it's cool. I think it'll get worked out here with stable coins in the US, things like a Bitcoin ETF. And it seems like it'll be well timed right into the halvening. So we'll see what happens. But it was funny, man. Like as soon as I got that notification on my phone about the Grayscale winning the SEC, it was like Bitcoin popped like 7% instantly.
awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's been such a long time coming.
Yeah.
Years in the making, that one, in fact. So I'm just looking here on YouTube, and this is saying on YouTube that it is live. I mean, my computer just doesn't want to load all these things, but it looks
I
to
see.
me like...
What is the what's the YouTube handle?
I'll send you the link, shall I?
Sure, please do. Yes.
I'll get that over to you now.
Just I'm not getting the best luck right now with the stream. It doesn't seem to be appearing on my side.
Yeah, I mean,
Jim, should the stream right now be showing the sequencer?
let me just have a look.
That's what I'm. It
Oh,
says
yes,
live.
it should be. It should be. I mean, it shouldn't be, probably. It should probably be showing us. So
I think you can switch it in
let me just
OBS,
jump
right?
back to
In
here.
the panel, I see the image
And
of
then back to here. There
Jim
we go.
is
So now
completely
that should be...
distorted. Do you see that as well?
the stream. There we go. So now we
Jim
can
looks
see
good
the
to me.
four of us.
Everybody
yeah?
looks good on
Okay.
my side personally, but definitely, Jim, if you can maybe drop me like a DM either platform for the
That is
link.
me playing it there, isn't it? That's why.
Yeah.
That's why we can hear it replaying. Teething going on because here, but hopefully in about
It's all
12
good,
months
guys.
I will have this absolutely tied down.
12 months. Guys, anybody who's watching this right now is very lucky, okay, to experience this, people. So I think
Yeah, it doesn't get this chaotic. This is like kind of live comedy. Let's be fair. This is like actual slapstick
Grayscale.
going on here. There we go. Okay, so I've just shut that, but that was playing from YouTube. So whatever's going on, it is still it is still happening. There will be a recording at the end of it, I think, that we'll find. So let's go back to this. And now here we go. So now we're back. We're back. We're back to talk about Audionals, sound, audio, a library, a layer one audio source of truth. Tell me some of the things you've said about it, Babo, because you always seem to be able to really put this stuff into words.
Well, where I always try to start to articulate it is that if you look at the history of music, new formats emerge that are essentially just more efficient file storage systems that solve problems for artists and rights holders and fans. So, vinyl, tape, CD, downloads, and streaming. There will be something that's next. And so, in my mind, the next format of music, really, where this current format of music is underserving everyone from major labels to independent artists to the hobbyist who's just starting out, putting their first song on Spotify and is owed money for that. Or let's say a producer just putting their first beat on YouTube and is owed money for that. The current format has all these different competing. There's a few different competing formats for the metadata that tracks and monetizes the copyright of your songs. And so the next the next music format, I think, will take into account that problem with getting paid in music. And also it will start at, where the copyright of a song originates, which is at the moment of creation. So that's where you actually start creating the song. That's where copyright is protected by law. And so I think Audionals is the coolest protocol I've seen emerge in quite some time to be able to essentially be, for lack of a better terms, a more efficient file storage system that could ultimately be the next music format. So I always start from the format perspective. Once a format is created, obviously you have to get it into people's hands and you have to have people using it. And so that's kind of like, I would say, the hard problem of Audionals is because this current download streaming format is really, really good. Like, it's really efficient in a lot of ways. And so how do you convince producers about the high level philosophy of, let's say, Bitcoin, because that I think applies to music really, really well. How do you convince producers of that and get them on board and have them start building out this essentially open source library of samples and essentially this new way of creating and distributing and producing music? And that's actually the fun challenge to me.
Yeah, and I think that is the main thing, is that what this is really doing is creating unprecedented levels of transparency, which means that you don't also once this thing is in place, we talk about royalties and everything, but I think the thing to really bear in mind that this isn't royalties like it's royalties that anybody can check. It's not just the world of publishers or labels. It's like the whole thing is laid out there for you. Anyone can audit, anyone can trace how payments have been made, who's been making them, where they've gone to, who owns everything, who owns the rights, what are the rights. There can be packages of software in the future that will know how to go into these JSON files, because of these standards that we're creating, go in there, know exactly which fields they need to read. Something Bubba and I were talking about was about how we create something that is that can deal with every single performing rights society around the world and talk the right language. They all have their own formats and these things. So it's like, ideally you want these things to be able to be full resolution, from the person who created it through to what their plans were for the licensing, who any other interested parties are. And then you have pieces of software that could take an entire song and then just give you a single text readout that just says, here is everything you need to know about the ownership, the licensing, the payments for this song. And all I had to look at was the song file, because that's what Baba's talking about with the format, is that this format encompasses all of that. So there's actually no recording. There's no recording. Yeah. There's no master. There is a set of text instructions that is effectively like what we used to think of as sheet music. but that sheet music is like several levels deep in terms of what it's telling you. It's A, telling you if you execute this sheet music, you can hear the song. And then if you look, at deeper on the data that's in the same file, you can now find out all this other stuff down to licensing, ownership, creation, all of that. And so that's where it's very exciting, but it's going to take a while for, this is like, it's like the spark that sort of starts something big here. But I think I'm certainly under no, false, I can tell this is just going to take probably decades. Hopefully, by the time I'm in old age, I'll be like, yeah, that's kind of really worked. But it's to build that infrastructure. First of all, we need the trust. Then we've got people who can see, that there is something in this, and it's almost like this may end up being a kind of subculture to start with, where because even just the contracts coming together, I can't necessarily envisage how these things will all work together. I can see a lot of songs that get written, and then there's just constant red flags going, something doesn't work in here. There's two license ideas here that conflict, and that they can't be used in the same song. So I can see almost, it feels like now it's down to like people like us and people who are into the idea to actually come up with the perfect collaborative arrangements and make sure that they're all talking to each other, going, how do we put this licensing stuff in here so that when this song comes out, it's kind of everything works together, everything goes, yep, we're all in sync, all of these contracts are kind of every single audio sample has the correct licensing information. So if you were to send a payment based on just taking that song file and saying, I got $10 to send to this song, that it's all done correctly, because I can just imagine right now the error handling would be insane. So it's kind of down to us to just make the perfect song that kind of has all these things that work together.
Yeah, I think with it, like anything, it's there's a transition from the current format of music and the current way of doing things to the future, and it just takes people. I think where these Web3 platforms have kind of failed a little bit. I mean, music NFTs are basically dead at this point. Is I think they put out a product just assuming producers would want to use the new technology, because producers usually do, like, they're down to try new stuff. But where they, I think, failed was they didn't meet the producers where they are at and in the like audio workstation itself. And I've talked to Jim about it. This is something where I think we got to bring the sequencer into where the producers are and turn it into a plugin, like a really sick. Every producer wants a new cool way to make a beat. You know what I mean? They want, but I just don't think they're necessarily going to do it in a browser. So if we can get into the DAW and just give a really delightful experience with making a beat, then we have a chance to reel them into like the high level vision and the philosophy, and like, oh, hey, maybe we can simplify the way we collect royalties and eventually create a system where, dude, the second it gets to 30 seconds on Spotify, that money is in a multi-sig contract for you. You can just swap some tokens and get your royalties. Like, we live in a world where it can easily be real-time or close, we'll say close to real-time royalty payments. Shit shouldn't be taking 18 months.
I mean,
bro.
all these, when we get faster blocks, I mean, one thing that's happening on Stacks, I think, with this next upgrade is there's going to be, I think someone said 10 or 15 second blocks, which is kind of getting there. I mean, ultimately, I'd like to see music being paid by the second. For like people who are doing like live DJ streams or whatever, I don't see there being any reason why you can't have that resolution. But I've seen like like Justin, you've been working for a long time on like doing tuition sort of videos for FL Studio. I used to like have a studio. I worked with Logic for maybe 2 decades. I was a music producer, but then I ended up on the road, and then I ended up getting into crypto, and it's not something I've kind of missed. A lot of what's gone on in the sort of Web 2 world of music. Like, in fact, it was Babbo who told me about Splice. I've just been out of the loop. It's been something that I haven't done for a long time. But watching like you doing on the FL Studio stuff, I was thinking, how did you kind of come across Audionals, and what was it that appealed to you as someone who produces stuff that thought this was a neat idea?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess like what brought me to using these types of tools. First of all, I guess I got so much into mobile music. I think mobile, not sorry, not just music, just mobile, virtually everything. Because growing up in my household, I had like pretty much one television at the time growing up. Maybe there was another one in my mom and dad's room, but I have a lot of brothers and sisters, tons of us, tons and tons of us, right? So one television just wasn't enough. We got the Nintendo, we got the Dreamcast, we got the whatever the X. Well, we didn't have Xbox, but I'm just trying to say we had video games going on, but we just simply didn't have the means to like share the TV so easily. So I got into handheld gaming quite a bit, and when I started working, my first job at the pizza shop, um, I started just buying music CDs and some cassettes, but mostly music CDs at the time, and games, mobile games. So like my Nintendo DS or my Game Boy Advance and such and such. And I started making music on those, like the Game Boy Camera. Started making music in Mario Paint. I was making music with everything other than like actual, I guess, studio gear, but it's just what I had. And then I got drums. Anyway, so for me, I'm heavily into. I like FL Studio. I've been using it since I was pirating it. Yeah, I used to be a pirate of FL Studio until I eventually had the funds to go ahead and buy some. Right. Let me switch back over. And so I eventually bought it, and I leveled up my experience. But the channel, I have a few YouTube channels, to be honest. And like when I first saw Audionals, I just said to myself, my goodness, this it's rough right now. It's well, first of all, when I first saw it, the website was password protected, which is a different story. But when the website actually went live, I said, what, this is really different. I don't know how this is going to last. I believe it's going to last, and I actually feel like this is going to work so well with something I had been working with for a long time, and I would probably get into Twitter and start to retweet or something, kind of pin some of my ideas. So I'm kind of answering your question in a few different ways. So I'm going to switch screens, even though I know we're in this view. I started making music for a variety of Ordinals collections, BRC20 projects and Ordinals projects, just kind of inscriptions in general. And so, thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, I see that. So I made these tracks, and unfortunately, I'm not connected audio wise. I'm just showing you. I made a bunch of these tracks for different collections. So one quick example is, let me go over here. One quick example, like I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Borganals, for example. So I made a tune for the Borganals, and I said to myself, I made a bunch. I made like one, I made two, I made three, and I was so inspired by all these different communities, whether it be Bunzi has one, whether it be the frogs, or it could be subs, or just so many. I got so inspired by these collections and the communities. I started to make music for these communities, and I said to myself, wait a second, I think I have something here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a sound bank. Well, I already created a sound bank, and I didn't actually realize what I was doing, but I created a sound bank, and then I decided to myself, I said, hey, I think we're done. And so, guys, I think we lost the connection on the stream. Am I wrong?
Still
I think
says
I think we lost the connection. Am I dreaming or what?
I think we're good.
Oh no.
OBS is still
I think we lost the connection.
Really? Did we? I can't hear you now. I've lost your audio. Just gonna bring these guys back.
Hey,
Are we there, guys?
Yeah.
we're back.
Because I stopped hearing people, so I said I'm gonna stop. Are we good?
I think we're good. Can you hear me? It's just because I turned
can hear
everyone
you.
off in here. I was just because you were just doing your thing. I don't know what I'm doing.
You did something pretty good. I mean, you put the full screen on, but I
was just
suddenly
zooming in.
lost
I'm doing it in a very
everything.
haphazard way. I was kind of zooming in on you, which I'll just do it again. I'll do it
It was
that
cool.
way.
It worked. Okay, so let me just try to kind of wrap up the quick idea I was mentioning. So I made this essentially sound bank, and I said to myself initially when I first inscribed my initial collection, I had no plans of selling it. I just was like, I need to get on because this is some of my work and some art and da da da. Let me get this on. And then I thought to myself, I got this whole idea for the subscription model, and I put that through with my BRC20. And so I said to myself, all of my ideas that I wanted have come to life with inscriptions, and then recursive inscriptions came around, and I said, this is like exactly what I dare I say knew was gonna happen. I didn't know it was gonna happen. It was like me hoping so dearly, please let this happen. So I made a sound bank of about, let me actually look. I had it on the screen right there. So about one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8 different sounds. Okay, 8 different sounds, and maybe within there are some drum sounds. So maybe more like 12 different sounds. And I said to myself, I'm going to reuse all of these sounds to make a bunch of different instrumentals for different communities. In a moment, I'll repost some of my information there from the Mega Blends collection. So I made a bunch, and I said to myself, one of these days, I'm going to be able to upload these sounds as a sound pack. I don't know where, I don't know who. I can just inscribe the sounds and just tell people, hey, you can use it. But I didn't know when or where, how it was going to come about. I just knew that one day somebody was going to create some type of recursive inscription platform or something like that that would allow us to create sound libraries. And yes, maybe you're not selling it. That's fine. Like I said, with the initial my initial collection, I didn't necessarily have plans of selling it. Speaking with many communities, asking guys, should I sell them or not? Like I said, guys, I don't want to sell them. I'd rather give them away to people who are interested, and I was going to say deserving, but more like interested. Quite simple. No real bounties or any social bounties. Just communities that genuinely have an interest. Here, you guys take that and raffle them off however you want. So just kind of just to wrap up, when I found Audionals, I said to myself, "Oh my goodness!" Like I prepared for Audionals before it even came, and I just believed and hoped dearly that this would come. So long story short, I've got a sound pack, dare I say? I got many, of course, but I got one that's specifically designed for the collections that I created for the various Ordinals projects and communities around. And so maybe it's roughly 14, maybe 15 sounds, like a couple of bass drums, a couple of snare drums, one or two hi hats, piano, and a bunch of them maybe just upload them as just like middle C, and that goes to where the conversation. I hope this is like hopefully pushing the conversation to the next part, because I know we haven't heard from Color yet, but I hope we can. Sorry, Color, but I hope we could talk about the idea of transposing these files, transposing the sounds to create maybe even chords out of these files, to create melodies, like a step sequencer. Because of course we have a step sequencer. Jim, could you pull it up?
So the thing, yeah.
Is
So
it up
there's
right
the
now?
step
Maybe it's-
sequencer, and then the other thing that I was going to try and show you guys. I don't know if I've got the yeah. So that's the sequencer there. But the other thing that I've been working on is, so I've now created a synthesizer that that will take my controller keyboard. It's just a very basic oscillator at the moment that plays sine wave sounds. But so I've created an inscription that I can plug my USB keyboard in, and then I can play these sounds. And then I'm building a sort of new MIDI sequencer, which you can then you can actually just play chords. And then what we need to then do is start mucking around where you can then pull in a sample into the keyboard and then just replay it on every note. But just to start with, having just some synthesizers means, because one of the first things I actually did when I was mucking around with ChatGPT, I have this lovely keyboard behind me here, which is a Korg MS-10, and it's a lovely analog keyboard
hardware.
in a few of my bands, and it's just does these. And I've got this one sound that I really like, a really low, playing with the cutoff, and it's a really really sort of multiple oscillators, kind of creating this lovely bass sound. And so I went into ChatGPT, and I just gave it all the settings. I said, this is the sound I love. Here it's this wave. It's the cutoff is at this point. This is where the oscillators are set. And honestly, it blew me away. It's a one-trick pony. It's not like an MS-10, but it got the sound. It got the sound, and I was like, oh my god. And so then I looked at the file size. It's like 3 kilobytes. So it's
wait. How did it make the sound? Like, how did it figure out how to do the sound?
Because it knew, I don't know, but it was like I did, like I said, I said MS-10, so I did explain a little bit about the sound, but then I gave it all the settings. I literally just went through every setting on the keyboard, and I said, this is at this, this is at this, this is at this, and then it came out, and it was like, it's not got the sound of the MS-10, but honestly, I was blown away by how close it was. It's not got the real sort of bandwidth, the real low end of it, but it's 90% there, and it was such a small file that then that made me think, okay, so if this is such a small file, I could probably add a few variables in here to make it a little bit more diverse. But again, once we've got just a few of these synthesizers that people can actually create a melody without having to go into the, because when you go and look at the sequencer, I'll go in there and click some buttons here, because you can load your own. If you click in these load these channels to the left here, it brings up these are all the samples that I've hardwired in so far. Eventually, once we've got an indexer, this will all be sort of automated. But these are the files that you can choose, and then you can trigger those at any point within the sequencer. But yeah, at the moment we're very limited. It's not cheap. It probably costs $20 or $30 for me just to put the kick drum on and the snare drum on and these things. But once the community kind of gets in, once we kind of have that, people throwing different sounds in, that will start to improve things. But really, once we have actual, synthesizers that people can then play melodies and chords and progressions, then we're going to start hearing like real music, where you're not just restricted to using just the samples that we've got. And then after that, I'm planning to build some effects units, so you could actually, in a way, inscribe a sequence where you take, say, my kick drum, and you pass it through several different effects units on the way, and then you could actually inscribe that process that actually results in a different sounding sample, if you know what I mean. So you end up with the ability to kind of take any audio sample that does exist as an inscription, then change it using a number of other inscriptions, and then record that process, which results in a new sound, and then other people can then pull that process in to the sequencer. So now they are just hearing this kind of new sound that you have created. And again, there's the potential for a kind of royalty thing there as well. I don't even know how that would work out, but just because you've got this entire linear thing that you can trace, you've got the original sample, it's still being used, but it's now going through several effects units which may themselves have licensing conditions attached to them, and so you could in a sense end up with a song that almost has infinite ability to add infinite players into it. You could end up with a sound that was resampled and then resampled and then resampled, and you've literally got this full back history all the way back to the sample creator, and then every effect that was used to get it to this new sound. I'm very excited about where this could go, because it feels like there is actually no limit. And I've said this to people for a while. I felt in the crypto space that imagination really is the only real boundary that we have now, and our imagination can take us wherever we want it to go in this world of modular, a single domain software where anyone can take anything I've already done. Because don't forget, some of these things are, this one which I'm going to play colors song on, this is an inscription, so that itself is an inscribed version of the sequencer. It's got its own load and save buttons here, so you can still come in with any Audex file that you've created and load it in here. I think, and then the fact that that's already there, and I've built now a player that uses that sequencer as its engine, so anyone can go and inscribe their own version of a song. They can then recursively grab the engine and a player file and bring that all together, and everyone can just keep building on this. And that's, I think, the real magic here, is that there's no end to this. I was talking to Jeff X the other day. He's a super interesting guy, done some amazing stuff. He's behind Zin, the internet on Bitcoin, and he's just doing some amazing stuff. But when I explained the Audionals idea to him, it was only because he knew that I'd already built it. But he was like, honestly, I've been like a product designer for like decades, and if someone came into me and told me your idea, I'd tell them to just forget about it. It's way too difficult. It's way too technical. There's too many moving parts. But he's like, however, you've built it and it's working, and that's insane. But it just sounds insane. But this is where I feel like imagination, don't let it hold us back.
Mavericks. I'm curious to check out Color's track.
Yeah, shall we do it, Color? Do you want to introduce it, Color? You want to say anything?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's really awesome what you did, Jim. I mean, congratulations. It's the sequencer that you have now is really stable, and it can play a whole song. Yeah, it's really like something in the beginning that was really hard to think of, but you did it. You know, I mean, you just gave all this time and all this energy, and yeah, it's really amazing. And I'm glad I could be part of this. And immediately when I heard the first notes and the first sounds, I was excited because making music is something, but when there's a hype, when there's something that really makes you feel like really, really, really into the thing because you have just this limited amount of sound or technology, and you just have an idea in your mind and work with the stuff that you have, and this gives such a nice energy that I've had before with experimenting with new technology, and I really like that. So yeah, fiddling around and finally got this all together. So play the track, man. It's a drum and bass mix of your original sequence.
Let's play it. Right, so I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to hit the load button. Hopefully my computer's going to hold up.
Jim, if you can,
yeah.
just if you've got random items open in different windows, you may want to cut them down. Just close them up if you can.
I don't have anything random. I've just got everything that I'm using for the stream.
I see. Okay.
Right, here we go. That's open now. So I'm going to click load. Let's just try that again. So I did test this earlier and it was fine. Now it's it's refusing. Oh, there we go. It's loaded. Right. Okay. Here we go. Audionals. Audionals. Pump it. Audionals. Pump it.
I think it's playing for us now, Jim.
Audionals. Pump it.
My side, no, I can hear it, but also I'm testing it back on other devices. The output is a little quiet. Let me know, guys. No, just generally.
It's one small step for man.
Chatting is okay.
It's one small step for man. It's one small step for man. It's one small step for man.
Unfortunately, we can't hear Jim. I see Jim vibing to the music color, but you can hear it.
Okay, so I'm going to hit stop. It doesn't stop, does it, Calix? We haven't done the toggle mutes for the end yet.
No, Jim, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. Yeah, I'm sure it's just because you guys can't hear my output from OBS because I'm not. Because I couldn't figure out that into Restream. I'm sure it has gone out on the stream. You guys just couldn't hear it.
Maybe the stream's delayed. I'm watching the stream and I haven't heard.
Oh, really?
It yet.
Was it just silence?
Yeah. So I mean, we're chatting.
No.
Guys, like
Really, my desktop audio says it's. Can you just hear you guys talking? You can't hear the. Interesting. Okay. So.
Off record, I'll definitely give you some ideas of how we could do this even better. Just it's not a you problem, it's not a me problem. It's just the way technology is right now.
They do it even better. Like it was.
They're very specific types of sound. What am I looking for? Soundboards or gear that are being used these days for broadcasting through Twitter and podcasts and such. they got the loop back functions and some other good functionality that you can just kind of plug and play. So we'll get into that later.
So does
That's
this
not,
mean that the first couple of minutes that I played the sequencer, we didn't hear that either? Because I'm sending from OBS, so I really thought that this was all set up correctly. But yeah, we'll have a look at the stream anyway. It's all a big lesson to be learnt as I'm going through this process. I mean, I only learnt OBS in the last 72 hours, so it's been a bit of a baptism by fire. As I always like it. I think I generally exist in a permanent state of being slightly out of my depth, but I'm clearly quite comfortable.
I think a lot of musicians are like that. I don't know. I'm just saying. Makes
me feel alive.
I try to keep myself out of the mess, you know, and like making music and producing, because I feel like just getting out that creative energy is productive.
Yeah.
That's all. So yeah. I'm always a bit under a rock in some ways, you know.
I had some other music I was going to play, but maybe I'll hang off until the next show, because I've been collecting some music from Audionals. You know, I've been searching to find what was out there. There's like the very first song that I found from Audionals, which is it's like a sea shanty. It's quite funny, but I think I'll have to wait until next week to play it before I figure out this stuff.
I'm curious to know what you know, just kind of speaking about early inscriptions of music, I'm curious to know what somebody like Skrilla, I guess Rare Skrilla, would think about this platform. Not sure if we reached out to him, but
there's a few ideas I've had about how
he's a pioneer, you know, in the space.
I think there's some people who would love this, a bit like we do. You know, I'm sure there's some influential musicians out there who, you know, I've got a few musicians that I know around here, but they're just not. You know, it's like people I've worked with in the past with the things we did on Stacks, but these guys aren't. They're not those kind of guys who love the sort of pioneering. You know, they're more in there. But there are other musicians out there who I know would flip over this, and they'd be like, "Man, what do I have to do?" And it's like, all we need is someone who's got like, "Hey, if you've got a few grand, you know, let's just inscribe every sample you're using in this song, and let's create it." Because something else I haven't mentioned to everybody yet, but another thing I was working on, in fact I may have told Bebo, but I was working on an idea where I took my 9.5 megabyte MP3. This would only apply for dance music, DJ music, sampler type, sequencer, sampler type music, but I have a 9.5 megabyte. It was just an MP3 file, but it was just to see what I could do if I was to build an algorithm that would go through the song and it would break it down into 1 second chunks, or it was actually a little less than a second, but you know, in even sequences throughout the whole song, and then it would compare them all, and it would find any areas of the song which was a direct repetition and replace it. And I managed to, the first time I passed this algo over the song, it passed out a reasonable version of the song where it had the structure, it hadn't got all the stuff right, but it was 1.7 megabytes. It saved like 80%. And then I went in and I did it myself by hand in Logic, and I still got so I've now got the song that's 9.5 megabytes if I were just to, you know, directly inscribe it, but I've now got a perfect reproduction of it. I can't tell the difference, and it's 2.5 megabytes. So it's 73% that I've shaved off this song, which could now be inscribed 73% cheaper than if I were just to inscribe it by using the same Audionals idea, but it's just breaking down an actual recording and then resequencing it, you know, using just the unique sections. So anything that's not unique is it just repeats the previously same section of audio and stuff like that. I think, you know, to cross over, because one of the really hard things talking to musicians with the Audionals thing is that Audionals is a completely new way of doing things, and this is the beginning of a new way of doing things. So it's not about traditional recordings, but what about traditional recordings? You know, that does have a place here for a long song that is like folk. It's like, well, you're just gonna have to pay, you know, you're gonna have to take that 5 megabyte song and chop it up into, you know, 5 megabyte size things, which are each going to cost you like $1,000. But, you know, for a big musician who's really into this, that's actually not a great amount of money, because then I've made this player that now, which I can show people. So the player is kind of cool.
See, I like that.
Because
So while you load that, Jim, I want to comment quickly. Like, that's one thing, selling music through selling hardware and music, some type of tool, whether it be headphones or cassette players or phonographs or whatever it may be. There's oftentimes in history been some type of medium that was used to get the music out. And nowadays we can't really sell phones. We can't really just get up and just sell a computer just to get people or something to get people to listen to our music. It's not like everybody has a budget to develop something like that. But oh, by the way, I'm hearing the stream has caught up,
okay,
so I can hear it now. Okay,
was there any music?
There's music. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
hearing
really?
it now.
There is music.
There's music.
Okay,
yeah.
hooray! Color, they heard your song.
It's good. It's good. So I'm hearing it. So
Good.
I just love the fact that what you're about to show, I don't know exactly, but I love the fact that we have the ability to create new players, new experiences, new mediums, new platforms that people can engage in the music. By the way, this is sick, Color. This is sick. I'm hearing it like 5 minutes later, but my gosh, this is dope. Babo, you hearing this? You can't. You gotta. This is
I
sick.
can't hear it.
Oh, this is dirty. By the way,
Yeah, when I'm in YouTube, I hear another part where I hear a conversation.
This is
already-
crazy.
You
I'm
guys
just
couldn't
thinking-
hear it. You guys were all talking, going, Jim's just play. It's just silent. I'm rocking it out.
I saw you.
Oh,
This
that's
is
good.
hilarious.
So I'm not as hopeless as we initially thought.
So did you play the whole track?
Yeah, I mean, I stopped it because as I was saying at the end, it got to the end. I think it wasn't going to stop, was it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, there's
Oh,
an
shit.
end.
I must have stopped it just slightly early. Sorry, I was.
No, this is sick. Color. This is good.
Thank you.
I love
So
this.
what I was getting to is, with what we've been, Color and I have been discussing was, getting this player together. So I've been working really hard to try and get the player working. I have now got an inscribed version. So this is the inscribed player. I have done some more since, but this is the one that kind of properly works at the moment. There's some more additional things that I've added into it. But what is really cool about this player is there's several layers of recursion going on here. So the player itself is connecting. So the image, the Audionals logo, that's one inscription. Then there's the Rex Speedway. So the remix that I first did with this is like a band called Rex Speedway and the Denim Avengers. So I took the Rex logo, which also is another inscription, and I got that to place on the hat. Then we've got, there's some scrolling text, which I think you can see going along there. So that also is another inscription, which is another, recursive inscription, which is pulled into the player. And then finally with the player, I'll play it for a second, but it's got automation built in. So I've now got, all the different parts of the player can be tied into different instruments and things. At the moment, I've just got it tied to the steps, but you'll see there's a little bit of animation, but obviously the idea is that animation could be used in many ways to actually animate the player in different ways. I'll hit play here quickly. You guys probably won't hear this. I'm just going to play it for 20 seconds.
Sure.
So yeah, I'll just stop that there. But as you can see, that is actually literally tied to the timing information which is being thrown out by the sequencer. The sequencer says, every time it plays any channel, it sends out a little message. So you can grab those messages as well. For example, when the bass kicks in, you can say, okay, when the bass kicks in, I want the headphones to vibrate. When this particular sound, when he says ow, I want the logo on the hat to spin around. You can sort of do anything like that. So you can add these nice algorithmic code things in, but beyond that, you can also add, music videos. You can add hidden content. You can treat this like you would any other NFT collection that's algorithmically created, and you've got great power to do whatever you want in these things, to treat them one of one. You could make 1,000 that are all unique. With little effort, and the best thing about this all is the way I've been constantly honing this recursive technique is that actually the code for this player is tiny. It's I think this current player here is 600 bytes. I'm going to get the player down to around 200 bytes. And, you know, so the cost, you know, I've been intending to like throw like $1 or something in front of things so that Audionals can kind of, you know, get funded so I can keep on building stuff. But if you take that away, the price of creating the player is going to be something like 40 or 50 cents. And, you know, when you go into the real world and you say, here's a new idea for mass distribution, on-chain production, mass distribution of, and of course at the moment we're showing you as a player with one song, but the player doesn't have to have one song. Again, it doesn't change the size of the player at all for me to make it, you know, an album or an anthology or a playlist. It can play any number. The thing could have 50 hours of music attached to it and it's still going to cost 50 cents to produce. It can have 50 hours of music. It can have several music videos. It can have a website built into it. Whatever you want to do with it, but your distribution cost is going to be, you know, in the range of $1 to $2. You know, and so it's like that suddenly is like an actual competitive prospect, you know, for people, you know, who are in distribution, you know, labels who are distributing 10,000 albums or 1 million albums even. You know, this suddenly becomes like, okay, this isn't physical, and we have to, you know, accept that this isn't physical, but it still has that NFT thing, which is, it does still, we know that these digital things do give people a sense of ownership, much more than people might think, because people still think about, well, if it's a JPEG, it's just a JPEG, I can copy it, and they don't necessarily get that. No, you know, there are JPEGs, but then there's the actual ownership of this thing, which you could prove if you met that person, you know, that you can prove that you own one of the only 1,000 that were made. And people do see this stuff. And now when you've got a multimedia player that becomes that thing, that can have, you know, very specific exclusive content that's tailored to a specific fan, whatever you like, you know, that it's all built in. And again, all you're gonna be looking at is paying like $1 or so for each copy of this thing, which is then sent out to people. I feel like this feels like the first time in my 10-year crypto journey when I felt I'm sitting on a product that has real world use cases outside of crypto. And it's utility, it's real utility. It's not about hype. It's not about, you know, capitalizing on over exuberance of people spending money. It's about artists having a new way of doing something that not only is profitable and costs less, but actually puts them at the center properly of the whole system, you know, because everything would ultimately end up revolving around these song files, which don't have interested parties that are record labels or publishers, because that's not how songs get written. They make the jobs for themselves after the song's been written, put themselves in the middle of the equation, and then make sure the money goes to them, and then they pay the artist. Whereas this new way, if people do end up sending money through these new payment channels via these JSONs, ends up in a situation where your labels and your management have to, and in my opinion, the right way around, and they have to call up the musician and say, did we do a good job this month? Is it cool if I send you my invoice? You know, which is kind of how it works for every other profession, but just not for the creatives. And that's I think the main thing, is that it just, without meaning to, it just puts the creatives at the center of the thing. And so it's like everyone has to go to the creative. Can you do me the favor of making sure I get paid, not the other way around? So yeah, I'm very excited, because this feels like this could really, you know, the idea of being able to produce a player that does way more than any other player. It's not hardware, it just exists digitally, but it's got a really low production cost and a high, you know, innovative angle and all the rest of it. I think that it could get really exciting, but we do need to find our ways to the right people who are going to sort of get behind this and go, this is really cool. Because actually, you know, you go to the powers that be in the music industry, they are going to probably hate this when they really think about it.
Go to the powers that be in the music industry and say, hey guys, we're trying to solve the black box royalty problem where $3 billion
The black
a
box
year,
we've
whatever
spent
it is.
decades producing.
Yeah, the black box royalty is where you three major labels, you get all of those funds that isn't your money. You just get $3 billion for free. Hey, we're gonna solve that problem so you don't get those $3 billion anymore. I don't think that they're gonna sign up. If you tell, like BMI or ASCAP, you say, hey guys, we found this new solution so you don't have to push any more paperwork and you can get rid of all of your employees. Like, I don't think they're gonna be down.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think what's an exciting prospect and what I want to try to find is, if you look at the fastest growing segment in the music industry is independent music. It's 100x since essentially Macklemore had Thrift Shop on the radio. Macklemore, that was only 10-ish years ago, 11 years ago. Independent music has 100x. So now imagine if Macklemore and Ryan Lewis at that point, or Chance the Rapper even, back 10 years ago, 11, 12 years ago, they had this independent ethos, but they had this tool. Things might be different. And so I think if you look at the trajectory of music industry, the world is going towards not just the music industry, a world in which creatives have more control and more power. They just need to have more tools and software and pieces of technology to allow them to be the ones that control their own destiny and to remove these middlemen. And it's happening. We're in the process, as Jim mentioned, this decades-long process of it happening. And I'm really stoked because I think this is one of those tools that could potentially be a game changer if it's just rolled out properly, the right features at the right time. You get the right artist to make the right song. I'm really excited to see what could happen if you do find, the next Macklemore, the next Thrift Shop, and you make it on a platform like this. What could happen in the next 10 years? So it's really cool, man. And that's why I always start with the file format or the music format idea, because it's really, new formats are just a cheaper, more efficient file storage system. And that's what is started here. Via limitations, and who would have thought layer one Bitcoin?
Yeah, I know.
And who knows then what can happen if, a layer two like Stacks becomes the thing where the Bitcoin community, rallies around it. Who knows what could happen when layer two gets involved? So to make
Yeah,
it
and there's still
more efficient,
there's still more that we can do in terms of the way this is working now is all leaning on the Web Audio API, and there are already some amazing libraries which I'm just kind of waiting to either get the funding to inscribe, but there are some some really great music libraries which, once they are actually put in place, I can improve this model so much. It also, in terms of timing, there's a lot of things. This is literally the actual bare minimum viable product, but it works really well. It works super well for what it does. And one of the things that I haven't shown off in here yet, maybe next week, once I've got a little more control over the streaming stuff, I'll have a go, but is that the live element to this sequencer is super cool. And this is one of the things that Color got me very excited about when I was, he was coming back and saying, can it do this, can it do that? And I was, beavering away trying to add these additional things elements he was asking for. And then he sort of finally got back and he said, I could use this live because if you go in and you play with the sequencer, you go into the sequencer and you create a sequence. You go in and you sort of turn these bits on and off. You set all these patterns, and then you come down here and you hit save, and then it saves off this JSON. And actually, what that gives you is a JSON which has all the different samples and all the different places that they get triggered, and you can save an infinite number of these, all with completely different settings. And then if you go into the load button in the sequencer and you hit load, while it's playing, it will just drop in this new song, all these new samples, all the new triggers, without skipping a beat. It literally will just go, I've just changed all your samples and I've changed all the trigger places, and you don't hear it. You don't hear it skip. It just flips from one to the other. And actually, there's amazing stuff you can do with that, because you can also, just for one song, you know, it's actually been much harder getting the sequencer to play a full song. But when live, it's so easy to go, okay, I've got a drum roll here. I've called this like a fill. I've got this like a halftime fill. I've got a double time fill. You can have like 100 files, and then you can just drop in and out of them, and you could play for hours like that. I just haven't had the time to get creative to make enough files, but I've got a couple of things where I've played like 10 files, and you can just keep looping through these things. It never sounds tired. You can always throw in the fill or mute a part of them. One thing that it needs is like mute groups, so that you can like mute a group of things at once, and solo something would be ideal, so that you can sort of go everything out, vocal solo, everything back in, you know, stuff like that is not going to be too hard. But in the meantime, playing it in that live way by creating lots of JSON files, and then while it's playing, hitting load and dropping in these JSON files is a lot of fun, and it works a lot better than I expected it to. It's genuinely like something you could, if you just had the JSON files there, you could totally use it live, which I'm really excited about. Someone doing I'm sure I'll get asked at some point from one of these various crypto conferences to come and demo that. Which
I hope I'm there. You know what I'd love to see? I would love to see. I already mentioned, you know, like transposing so we can do chords and various things like that. But I would like to see a mixer. So adjust some levels. By the way, Jim, I sent you a file. I sent it to you through direct message in Discord, I believe. I think I've got too many windows open now.
Is this a JSON that I can play?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just a loop, but it's one of the few that I made so far.
Cool.
Guys, I'm really excited to upload my sounds. I just haven't I've got about, I think now it's like 18. It might even be 20, but whatever. It's like 18 different songs for different ordinals communities, and what I want to do, I'm going to tell you like my dream here, you know, which is fine. This is like, it's just part of the dream, but essentially I want to be able to resequence those tracks that I made, but through Audionals. So I made them on whatever platform, and I've got MIDI files or XML files, let's just say, for example, and I want to be able to load these files within Audionals and essentially recreate those same songs. Maybe they'll sound a little bit different. That's completely fine. But recreate the same melodies, same chords, same bass lines, same everything, just with whatever sounds people choose to load up. So that's one reason why I haven't inscribed my individual, like essentially the sound pack for this, because I just want to make sure that when I do, I'm never really the person who needs to be first. I just want to make sure I do it right, and for at least for myself, satisfy myself, and then duplicate it for other people to hear. I'm completely fine like that. But I really want to be able to take these files, let's say these arrangements, whether it be, let's just say MIDI, okay, because it kind of goes. I've said this story too many times. It's so boring now, but I initially, before I got into Ordinals, in January, I guess I was like 2 weeks late or 3 weeks late from the time it started, but still fairly early. I still spent a lot of time just researching, because I said to myself, I've heard of NFTs, and I know NFTs very well. You know, we've all heard of NFTs and all used or bought or sold or got wrecked or something with NFTs. But, you know, I said to myself, what is different about this in NFTs? I need to read. And I said to myself, wow, I have a feeling that this is the future of digital assets in this way. Music is going to be on chain, and my brain started going crazy. I said, what happens with games? And now we have people uploading sound libraries. And then what if we can reuse these sounds? And then again, like I said, recursive inscriptions, you know, were kind of mentioned. It's like, wow, okay. But I have, my initial idea came from me building an AI tool, a music generator AI tool that used sounds, of course, that you loaded, that were triggered, but using MIDI files. Okay, so different MIDI loops, different MIDI chords, different MIDI sections, whatever you want. You can load up bass sounds, you can load up leads, you can load up drums, and then of course call on those different pads, those patches, right? I want to see the same type of feature where somehow we can integrate MIDI files. It might not be MIDI files, but something like that. What are your thoughts on that and the possibility of us being able to do that, to create full arrangements?
It's totally going to happen. 100%.
Yeah, like if we wanted to, we could inscribe a JavaScript MIDI library right now and start using it. Like it's just a matter of inscribing the library and kind of
MIDI.js is actually quite small as well. I've already looked into it.
Yeah, there's a
MIDI.js is
few of
quite
them.
small. It's for 30 or 40 kilobytes or something. I think I looked it up. But
Yeah,
there's
a
also
few
there's a
different-
better one. It's the web. There's MIDI, and then there's another audio one. It's not. I can't remember what it is now. But there's another audio one which also includes the MIDI anyway. It's kind of got MIDI wrapped into it. It's about 70 kilobytes, I think. What is that one?
XML, maybe. Because that's another thing I was
But
messing
yeah,
with.
a few of these libraries, and there's so many improvements that can be made already on this that take a lot of the. I mean, I'm already going to rebuild the sequencer using Svelte, which is a way of creating more modular JavaScript that treats everything as a component. I already took the synthesizer that I'd made in vanilla JavaScript and I reformatted it into a Svelte framework, and it actually worked better already, as well as being a bit smaller. So yeah, there's so many improvements to be made. You know, I've said to a few people, I'm not actually a developer. I've kind of gone through this process of kind of trial and error and pulling together lots of modular pieces of code to put this together. But I just can't wait until the real developing talent kind of falls into this, and suddenly there'll be like an explosion. Because honestly, every time I have an idea about trying to do something, it kind of works. It always works in a way, and this is just me throwing stuff at a wall and waiting for it to stick. But it's like everything sticks. Everything sticks. It's not perfect, but I can see that any actual developing talent is going to come in here. Look at look in our studios at how we all sit and we use all these digital things all the time. You know, we use digital instruments, we use emulators, we use things that can literally pretend to be an actual piece of hardware, and they're not as big as you think. Certainly
No, it's usually just math, man. It's usually just math.
Just a bunch of numbers thrown together in the right way, and so all of these
and put into a UI, and like
usually
that
the UI is the biggest thing. And so again, when we start building these modular, like if we were to build a new logic or a new something, that UI doesn't need to be replicated. There's just got to be one of, it's got to just exist as once in that network, and now everyone can pull that together and use that. And so some of the biggest memory is actually in the look, and that can be divided up and then reused, and then all of these emulators and things can just operate just as that mathematical code, those oscillators coming together. I honestly think that within a few years, 2 or 3 years of people knowing about this project and knowing about what they can be done, there will be genuinely, like Babo's saying, if we did manage to get it, say, put into logic, there will also be an on-chain version of this where there are plugins that are just as good, maybe some exclusive plugins that people have gone, no, I don't want it to just be on-chain, but plugins that are as totally stand up against stuff that we've just assumed for years has to come from Apple or has to come from someone. People are going to start open sourcing this stuff on chain, and I think it'll very quickly, we will have some people will find the way, even within the current constrictive environment, to write a hit song using this stuff, using a few inscribed samples and hopefully some synths and effects that we've got. I don't think it'll take too long. It just needs a lot of people. I spoke to a college yesterday, music college, who they were really interested in me introducing Audionals to their students, to their first year music students, because they were like, oh, we could have a competition where they're all like doing these JSONs. Like, oh my God, that would just be so cool if I could just have students kind of sending JSONs and then I'd just be like playing stuff. That's all I need, is just content to kind of, that's the main thing right now, is like content to kind of get that out there, to get people listening. Someone's going to hear something they like. At the moment it's just like, we've got Colour's done a song, I've done a song. Actually, but let's listen to yours, Justin.
Let's do it. So this is one, just a nice little loop. I kind of dig it. We were going in on the live stream a couple of days ago, freestyling and all this, just having a good time. So yeah, that was fun.
Right, let's hear it. Do I want to mute anything, or I'm just going to hit play?
Maybe just hit play. No, just hit play. It's just a loop.
can't hear this, can you? Oh, I love this. Oh my god, yeah, well, this will come up on the screen shortly.
Give it a few minutes.
Right.
But this sound
like
pack
filming.
is the most legendary sound pack. I'll let you know, right? Just this is the most legendary sound pack ever.
Oh yes, I love that. That is so vibey. That's like straight out of like a film soundtrack or something.
Okay, okay.
Awesome.
Guys, we're gonna have to wait a few minutes for the stream to catch up, but yeah.
Can't wait.
Oh yeah, that's lovely, man. That's lovely.
The colors was sick though. Like it just hit my headphones and I was like, oh shoot, what is this?
Well, I just want to
I
get
love
this
it, I love
connection.
it.
I mean, I was going to also announce on this show that I've opened the Discord. I guess I'll post it somewhere, but I want to get people into the Discord now, because one of the things I've got in there is, there's a whole section for sharing stuff, which is like sharing inscriptions you've uploaded that people might not have spotted, or sharing JSON files you've made, because I just think, the collaborative side of this is where it's going to be so much fun, because it's so easy to send a JSON to a friend. They can just tinker with it, send it back to you. Now you've got, two versions of the JSON. You can load that into the player, especially combine that with the fact that you can use these things live and you can just keep playing them. I mean, if we can get a page in the Discord, even with like BPMs. So it's like, if you've got anything at 110, throw it in here. You're going to, suddenly I could just be going into the Discord and just randomly pulling out JSONs and making a live mix, without even knowing what it's going to sound like. And that would be super cool. So I will post the invite for the Discord, and then hopefully we can get, get some more creative conversations going in there where people are kind of sharing and creating. And I think that's what's kind of what's next.
So I love the fact, again, like I said it earlier, but like I just really am super excited to have my own thing. I don't, we use, of course, YouTube, and maybe going way back, we use other stuff like MySpace or SoundCloud more. Spotify's big, and all the different audio music streaming platforms are there, of course. But I always wanted to have my own thing. I thought to myself, when am I going to release headphones? I still have a brilliant, I think it's brilliant. I still have a brilliant idea when it comes to headphones, and pretty much Apple kind of took my idea, to be honest. But it's because not because it's good, but they're doing it because it's the way that speakers work. If you think about it, like these headphones, the part of the headphone that dies fastest is probably going to be the connection. It's not really the speaker in any way, right? It's the connection.
The real moving part, yeah.
Having things be more modular is very important.
Totally with you, man. I mean, we got a thing over here called Canford, because I used to be an audio engineer.